Hello, everybody. This is the CT Sports Talent Show. My name is Christopher Saunders. I'm pleased to have on from the Naugatuck Greyhounds senior Jett Hall with me, also known as Wind. Sadly, Earth and Fire are no longer with us. They are in college or doing their own thing beyond the Naugatuck Greyhounds, but one is still here. Jett, I appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You know, Jett, before we talk about obviously this upcoming season, we're a couple weeks out from the first games. September 7th is mainly for a lot of people the first games. I kind of want to circle back to last year a little bit because I don't know if the adversity that you dealt with last year is something that you ever have in your young career, but if you can share a little bit, just the mental side, and if you can, for people who may not know, the injury occurred the first game of the season against Gilbert Northwestern Housatonic after you made a sick play running a gazillion yards and hurdled over somebody, but then you got hurt. Talk to me about that a little bit, man, and just kind of the grind of getting back.
Yeah, I've never experienced something like that before. In my early Pop Warner days, I've never been hurt, never missed a game because of an injury. So that was literally my first time in my whole career of ever like actually missing something. Especially in high school football, how intense it is. So I definitely had to battle the mental side of it. It really felt like I was never going to get better. Like once you go through a knee injury like that, you feel like you're never going to be the same athlete. So I lost so much confidence, like in that moment. But I just rehabbed it every day, went to physical therapy, and they got me back. Feels good now.
You know, the rehab part I think is something that I think a lot of people think, oh, okay, well, you rehab and then you're good to go. But everyone's rehab is different. Everybody recovers from injuries differently. And I never had the opportunity to be able to talk to you during the season as far as the process of you going through the leg injury. Did you ever feel like you could have came back sooner, or do you feel like the game? And I think it was the Woodland game you came back. If I'm wrong, if I am, I'm sorry. But if that was the game, do you feel like you could have came back sooner, or was that the right time to come back?
I actually feel like I should have came back later. I really was not 100%, but I was telling coach I was 100% because I really couldn't miss out with those seniors. Like, that's literally my second family. So I was just doing whatever it was to get on the field. I'd tell them I was all right, but I was definitely still weak. I was super rough and I wasn't able to really cut or anything.
I did notice that because in the first game that I saw you play was the Woodland game, and again the conditions, it was like kind of like Hurricane Hillary, right, down in California, where it was raining. I'm honestly surprised you guys were not swimming in a pool because of how
Yeah,
much it was raining.
sideways rain, like it was
Yeah,
insane.
it was awful. And, again, I'm not going to take something from that game. Obviously, you didn't look the same, but realistically, nobody looked the same except for Mikey Diedelbaum. But that's because he's just a straight runner. He's just ground and pound. But
Yeah.
when you played that game, because I want to talk about the psychological side with you, were you concerned about your knee during that game?
Not even a little bit. Like honestly, just in the conditions, one of our biggest rivals, Woodland. It's a muddy old NVL game. Like that's just the old fashioned game. I was just having fun. I really wasn't thinking about my knee. They definitely used me as a different type of player because my knee. I was more of a blocking player that game, but that was completely fine. I was just happy to be on the field.
I noticed too that not to insult you and saying you were the decoy, but there were a couple times that they did utilize you as that, and that opened up the floodgates for Martin, for Diedelbaum, and for a plethora of players to be able to be utilized. Did you notice that too?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like we, as the trio you said, fire, wind, and air, we used that as an advantage. Like when a team would game plan for one of us, the other running back would have a great game. That was the best part about it. We just knew how to spread the wealth really well.
I thought the one video I saw of you when you fell on the ground, and I think Mikey was like, Jett, get up, get up. I thought that was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was funny. And then of course the camera had to be right in front of me where I fell.
Hey, coincidentally enough, sometimes it's in the spots that you don't want it to be, right? Especially during a game. But it is what it is. But anywho, the season for Naugatuck in general was kind of it was a little crazy, right? There were some crazy games. Obviously, the Holy Cross game was nuts. And I know the outcome didn't go in the favor of Naugatuck. And then we know about the Ansonia game. You were up early, up I think 10-0, and then Naugy had a hard time being able to move the ball the rest of the way. Going through those games as you enter now your senior year, and I know the New Canaan game was another one that was a back and forth affair, very close, tight knit game. For you to be able to be through that, and to be back, are you able to take anything from that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just more experience overall. The more you do something, the more comfortable you get with it. So now I'm going into the season, going into the big games with a clear mind. You know, the nerves aren't going to get me as hard as when I was a junior or a sophomore. Now I know I'm like a senior, a vet. I've been on the field for 2 seasons already. So it's not as nerve-wracking, but it's still big games, you know. Just got to lock in and stick with the game plan.
When the off season started, and I can only imagine just how, because like you mentioned, Naugy football, that's your second family. You've grown through it, you know all the guys, right? So when you said not in like a goodbye forever, but a goodbye to the seniors, to Mikey, to Martin, to Stone, and so on and so forth, to Ramos and everything else. I mean, just talk to me about kind of the mentality of this off season because it's a little bit different than the past.
Going into the off season, being a new senior, and now you need to lead the younger guys behind you. Um, I was lost. I'll be honest. I had a couple meetings with Coach Anderson, and I was just straight up with him. I was like, I don't know like what direction I'm going in. This is the first time I've ever played as the captain or the senior, like needing to lead the younger guys. I've always been led. I am a leader, but never been a captain like that. And so I was nervous. I didn't really know how things were going to go in the off season. I didn't know if I was going to be a good role model or anything, but having a couple meetings with Coach Anderson really cleared my head. And yeah, I think it's going great right now. Team's looking real good.
I think the biggest, obviously, coaches are important for being able to coach on the field and also to prepare the teams to be able to play on Fridays, Thursdays, Saturdays, etc. But I think another side that people kind of forget is coaches are also human beings. And when they have a player like yourself who says, "Hey, I'm, not to put words in your mouth, but you were having trouble with the fact of, okay, I'm the guy, leader, I'm used to being led, like you said." Can you share some of the stuff that Anderson told you?
He straight up told me you need to be an 11 out of 10 leader. You can't be a 10 out of 10. You need to be 11 out of 10. So that's the littlest things like coming to meetings in the right attire, being early, or just leading by example and also talking. Last year's leadership wasn't really talking. Mikey doesn't talk. He leads by example. So he's like a Navy SEAL. So yeah, so that's just one of the things he pushed on me is just be a vocal leader as well. Don't just show by example. Really encourage the guys, get on guys if they're down, stuff like that. And that actually really helped me. He gave me really good advice on that.
Anderson for being a offensive whiz kid or whiz guy, because he's not a kid, he's a guy, but the way he's able to draw up plays, I mean, the way that he, can kind of build an offense around the players that he has. And I think what makes Anderson so great as a play caller and a coach is he's able to execute not just with one style, right? And obviously he's been around the game. He's seen every offense known to mankind. And you've been around him during his entire tenure with Naugatuck, right? He's been a part of the program now for 3 years. You've been with him now for 3 years. Do you feel like, not saying that every single play in detail, but the familiarity with it? Do you feel like you have the comfortability with that?
With the playbook that I've ever learned, yeah, I'm so fluent with it now because he just drills it into our head. But when it comes to like what he knows, I don't know. I don't know anything. I know a grain of sand. Like he pulls the craziest plays out of thin air and they work. Like he's such a genius when it comes to that. I can't even compare to his knowledge.
Was there one play that he either called, it could have been last year, it could have been the year prior, where you heard the play and you were like, wow, all right, cool. And then when you saw the play happen, you were like, wow, okay, he was okay. Kudos.
Yeah, I mean, just stuff like taking shots like jet pass or other fun stuff like that in the Ansonia game 2 years ago. It's like a shocker, like, wow, we're actually about to run the play that we've been training for, the special play. It's like it's just something different. And he always knows what he's talking about. He has a reason for everything.
This team coming into this year is going to be a little bit younger. I think a lot of people who have seen the Greyhounds the last couple of years have seen kind of the same names. There's been a couple players switched in and out, but it's been relatively the same players. This year is going to be a little bit different, man. How has it been as far as with the group of guys? I've seen some of the videos on the Naugy Twitter handle of the workouts, and you guys are getting at it. How's it been so far?
It's been real well. I take that to an advantage, knowing that most of the guys in the field have not really been noticed. So no one really knows what they're capable of. That's a good thing to me. And just the difference with this year is these kids want to learn. Like these kids are at it every day. And that's I love our offense. I love our defense. Just some great players overall.
I was going to ask too, because with the losses of some of the players on the offensive line and defensive line, that's kind of been now. Obviously, Nagy's had a prolific offense. You guys have been able to score at a high clip. But when I think of the last couple of years, my first thought before I even think of the offense is how fast Coach Moffo gets that defensive line ready to be able to attack the quarterback, and how much the offensive line is so physical. Again, going back to Coach Moffo and Coach Anderson, right? How has that developmental side been for those guys? Because there's going to be some new younger players who haven't had a lot of varsity time thus far.
There's a lot of, like you said, JV players that haven't felt varsity physicality. In Maffo and Anderson drill that into us. We're going to be a physical team this year. So when it comes to hitting stations or just like team settings, it's always hard, 100% game scenario stuff. So I think they'll be ready for it for sure.
For you as a guy who's entering his senior year and knowing how there's still a lot on the line, right? There's obviously always every single player I feel like has an opportunity when they play a high school season, regardless of what the chatter is amongst people like myself who broadcast or people who cover the game. You have a shot to be able to win a championship until your record says otherwise. And I know for Naugatuck, it's been the last couple of years. Now you beat Ansonia the year after COVID, but being able to find that playoff win has kind of evaded Naugatuck for a long time. And you've known that even back to your days when you were a little kid, right? So is that something that's ever talked about either within the practice field, away, or is that something not even thought about?
That's probably one of my biggest pet peeves or biggest motivators is just knowing we haven't finished out a season yet. We bring it up all the time. Like we have to finish the job. And that's a big motivator for the whole team. That's why we're just working so hard because we don't want to be let down again, regardless of having great seasons, my sophomore year and junior year, when you end off on a loss, like the ways we did, it honestly kills the mood, So we definitely want to finish strong and hopefully have a good run this season.
Are you expressing that to the team? If you notice something, maybe practice not, early on, maybe not going well, or you see maybe some players kind of joking in the weight room, are you voicing your, not frustration, but like, hey, we're not done. We have not finished yet, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, especially to the like freshmen and sophomore guys that haven't really seen what I've seen when it comes to finishing out the last seasons. I definitely get on them about it because they don't know what they're in to experience. Like they're gonna have so many memories from the upcoming season. I'm like, guys, like you're gonna have to work hard at it. If you really felt what our like us seniors felt not being able to finish out a season, you wouldn't be joking around right now. Like really lock in and focus because every practice counts.
I want to ask you about, Mikey Diedelbaum just for a second, because obviously he's Mr. Naugatuck. I think if he ran for mayor last year or this year, he'd probably get voted in. I don't know how he doesn't, right? The way that he carried himself was so beyond his years, right? And I knew him when he was a kid, and I felt like he was going to be what he is now, and he's exceeded that even more. What was the one thing, if you could pick one thing that you learned from him during the time that he played for the Naugatuck Greyhounds?
Notes that I took from Mikey, because I definitely studied Mikey, like biggest role model in probably my high school football career. Just be consistent. I don't think in his junior or senior year, I don't think he really missed one lift. When that's before school, when he was playing basketball, before school, when he was playing baseball, his consistency was his strongest factor, and that drilled that into me too. I never wanted to miss anything. And yeah, that really worked out for me, and he made me a better player because of that.
And one thing too, if I can add to that, and my broadcast partner mentioned it so many times, I don't think Mr. Diedelbaum, Mikey himself, ever had a negative yard rushing. He always followed forward. He never finish. Like, did you guys notice that too, or what, like were we just crazy in the broadcast booth?
Clear to me. Yeah, I've never realized that, but that's true. Like he's never got brought in back in the back of the line of scrimmage. Like he's a bulldog. He'll run through anybody if he needs to.
Old school football player. I mean, he's the kind of player that could play in almost any era because the way his style is, it just fits perfectly, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So as we go into this season, we're a couple weeks out. I mean, it's flying by. You and I were just talking about the summer, and it's crazy how fast the summer goes. Time just flies, right? Um, Early on, how has it been, for you specifically, with the games now kind of creeping up? Are you chomping at the bit, or are you just like, no, I'm taking it one day at a time?
Oh, I mean, I always take it one day at a time. For me personally, like I'm not looking at week 2 Holy Cross yet. I'm looking at week 1 Wolcott. And even before that, I'm looking at the scrimmage for St. Joe's coming up this Saturday. I'm not even really worried about anything else. And I'm just listening to what the coaches like tell me. Taking one play at a time, one practice at a time. Anything new we learn, I definitely keep that in my head. And yeah, like I said before, I'm just one game at a time kind of guy.
The Holy Cross game, and it's funny because Holy Cross is going to be tested early. They've got Woodland week 1, they've got you guys week 2. I mean, it's going to be very, very, I'm surprised that they're doing the game so fast because those are usually games that are played later on in the season. With how that game ended last year, not saying you're looking towards it right now, because like you said, you're taking it a day at a time. But I know in the back of all the returning players for Naugatuck who were on that field, you guys didn't forget that game. It's still in the back of your minds, isn't it?
Yeah, it is for sure. Not being able to finish out on that field goal, it hurt. Like we were right there. We had the win in our hands. So we're gonna come back strong this year. We're definitely gonna show them what's up.
Now, is the kicker back or did he graduate?
Yeah, he's back.
He's back? Okay. I'm not gonna lie to you, he's got a nice leg. I mean, the way that again, I don't know if he played soccer back in the day, but again, I played soccer, so I know a little bit about following through on kicks. He's got a very nice motion. He's got a strong leg.
Oh yeah. He's one of my best friends. He's been playing soccer his whole life, and he goes to the field and practice kicking all the time. So he's in potential to be an all-state kicker this year.
And I think that goes to my next point is I wonder, and I know Anderson did not need to kick a lot of field goals or extra points because obviously the offense was so sustainable to be able to score at a high, clip. But is there a chance that we could potentially see more opportunities to see the kicking game a little bit?
Like 100% guaranteed we'll see the kicking game more because after New Canaan, Ty Groff, one of the best kickers I've ever gone against, after he was just nailing the kicks on us, it makes you realize how important those 3 points could be. So I think Coach Anderson also realized that as well now, and we're definitely going to utilize Dom.
So before I let you go, Jett, I really appreciate you coming on. What has been the motto for this season coming up? Is it finish the job or is it something different?
No, this season, the motto is pride. Just have pride in anything you do. Care about what you do. Work hard every day. Really it.
Jett, I really appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun. I've always said, you're a great young man, just like Mikey. The way Naugy breeds these guys, you guys are always very classy, very respectful whenever I, have to ask questions or I have to bother you guys before a game. But I appreciate you coming on. A lot of fun. Best of luck this season, and I'll be seeing you quite a bit, for the broadcast.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem. That'll wrap things up here in the CT Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm Andre. Find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.